I'm going to go ahead and do yeah. Um, so and good afternoon or good evening, Nyla. Glad to have you here. Thanks, Amy, for getting us started. So again, this is for teams near and far, and my ulterior motive for hosting this is the team you see in the right-hand corner up there is from 2009. That was what got me started. I was with the group Heavenly Helpers. And Elaine Keller was on our last call earlier today. And she's the woman on the left there. And she helped me get started as a volunteer in this work. And now I've been doing it since that time. It became a job for me. And I lead the Lutheran Disaster Response Program here in Eastern Pennsylvania and also serve as the president for Pennsylvania VOAD, Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster, which we'll talk about more later. But my ulterior motive in all of this is so that we can build capacity for recovery closer to home. So the picture on the bottom is the Heavenly Helpers, that same group from 2009. Some different folks in the picture, but largely the same groups of people in 2024 helping us in Blandon in Berks County this year. So really want to try to build some capacity locally so we can keep helping our neighbors. Amy, if you could advance to the next slide. Our team for tonight is myself and Linda from Lutheran Disaster Response. If you want to say hi, Linda.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Glad to see you.
Linda has been doing this work. She's very modest. She's been doing this work much longer than I have, and she's an expert in disaster case management and helps connect volunteers with opportunities. Glenn, you're up.
I'm Glenn Beard. I coordinate the Lutheran Disaster Response Network in the Lower Susquehanna Synod. And like Julia, got involved in actively doing disaster response work after Hurricane Katrina.
And I think Elaine isn't able to join us this evening, so we are going to go to Dawn and Kevin.
Hi, this is Dawn Hickernell. We're from Trinity Lutheran in Wernersville. I'm the chairperson for the Mission Possible group, which has been going on trips for quite a few years now.
And I'm Kevin Kurtz. I'm part of the team with Trinity Lutheran Church.
Very good. I'll be hearing from all these folks in more detail soon. And Amy.
I'm Amy Phillips. I am with Lutheran Disaster Response in the Carolinas. So I am in Western North Carolina near Asheville, and we work with North Carolina and South Carolina.
Very good. And could you go to the next slide, Amy? Thank you. So we want to hear from all of you as well, just kind of where you're coming from, what you're interested in, so we make sure we cover it this evening. We are going to share some things about, what to think about when planning or joining a team, going through some just basic logistics types of things. And then we're also going to have Amy share specifically about the opportunities in the Carolinas for Helene recovery to give kind of to really be specific about what they're looking for and how their experiences work. So just want to take some time and just go through who's here, and I am gonna, if you can stop sharing for a moment, Amy, so we can kind of see the full screen of everybody again, and we'll do some introductions that way.
You can still see the screen?
Yeah.
Got it.
There we go. All right. I'm gonna just start on what I'm seeing on my screen. Pete, would you start us off and let us know where
Hi,
you're coming from today?
I'm Pete Collins. My wife and I moved here to Nazareth 2019. She is with the St. John's Lutheran Church here in Nazareth. Have an organization called Helping Hands, and we've deployed once to Dawson Springs, Kentucky after the tornado, and then once to Swannanoa after Helene. So we made those two trips. Haven't done. There were a couple others. The schedules didn't work out. So that's one side of it. So I've worked those two worked those two sites. We were a week on site each place, and pretty much a wide gamut, everything from reframing to painting. Uh, More importantly, I am here with an outfit called Team Rubicon, and we are a national disaster response outfit. We're all volunteers. And I'm on the Lehigh Valley leadership team, uh, kind of getting my feet on the ground and putting feelers out. Um, Nationwide, we got about 180,000 volunteers. I'm going to guess we've got a couple hundred, what we call ourselves gray shirts. We got a couple hundred gray shirts here in the Lehigh Valley. I've run chainsaws. I've done what we call core operations, where you're stripping out all the damaged stuff from inside the houses, preparing them for actual rebuild, as well as muck out operations. And what I'm trying to do is create volunteer opportunities for our gray shirts. Uh, Trying to focus here in the Lehigh Valley, if at all possible. I mean, they're probably probably, I don't know, 30 to 100 mile radius from, now I mean, Lehigh Valley Metro covers 13 counties. So uh, I see the rebuild mission as a good way for our gray shirts, one, just to do something. I mean, these are not sit around at home and look at the four walls type people. They want to be out doing something. And I'm trying to find things for them to do, because rebuild is not our primary mission. We're more response than the rebuild. It gets them out there, but it also gives people a look at what the insides of a house look like as you're building it back up again. So when you're coming in, stripping stuff out, you got kind of an idea of what's sitting behind that wall that you're about to hit with a sledgehammer or something like that. So you don't hit it with a sledgehammer. The easiest thing for me to do is to find existing organizations and then provide bodies for their efforts to kind of augment their teams when they go out. So we don't have a fixed schedule. It's what I can events that I can find and then advertise to our people, and then see what we can come up with for volunteers. We've got most of the equipment that we have is more designed for preparing the home for rebuild as opposed to actual rebuild. So I mean, we've got the hammers, we have pry bars and things like that. Not so much finishing materials, but destruction materials. After that, I'm open to suggestions. I mean, I've reached out to Habitat. I've got to get in touch with them again. Like I said, we've got manpower. They learn well, and they're enthusiastic.
Great. And Pete, there's lots we could talk about as far as Team Rubicon goes, and we have worked with some of your groups even from the Lehigh Valley, so would love to continue that partnership. You helped Team Rubicon helped with rebuilds in the Eastwick neighborhood of Philadelphia, and also with us in Berks County. So we would love to build on that. So lots to keep building on there.
So
Charles,
yeah, I'm really trying to just get my name out there, get our name
yeah,
out
it's
there,
great.
and so that when the stuff happens in the future, you go, oh yeah, Pete opened his mouth. Let's hit him up on it, see what we can get.
Yeah, we will. Trust me.
Cool.
Charles, would you let us know where you're coming from tonight?
Are you talking about the Charlie Benner?
Charlie Benner, yes.
Okay, I'm from the Snyder County, Selinsgrove area. I've been working with this sort of stuff since Katrina way back. Some was with Lutheran, some with many, many other organizations. Currently, we're working on, I know another fellow will talk about it, with, we sort of call it the Susquehanna Interdenominational Network for Disaster Response. It's a big thing. And we've been worked up in Tioga County in our area. Of course, we've gone to the Carolinas too. And I guess the main thing is we look for people to help out. It's been mostly within the Snyder, Union County, and Montour County. I don't know what else I can say. I personally do not go out much anymore. I've had a few health issues. However, I'm one that helps line for people. And we know a couple of real great carpenters. And I'm pretty sure Steve will say basically the same thing.
Okay, very good. Wonderful to have your experience with us. Steve, why don't you take it next?
Sure. Well, Charlie said a lot of what would have said as far as that goes. We have taken a number of trips to Kentucky, Dawson Springs. Somebody mentioned we were there several times. Let's see, Virginia. We've been to Virginia several times, and in the last 2 years, about a half a dozen trips up to Tioga County. But we're always looking for more volunteers and more projects. So that's why we're here.
Wonderful. Fantastic. And just to note, when they're talking about Tioga County, that's from Hurricane Debbie. In the same year Helene hit the area, it was va dramatically shadowed by Helene and Milton. But absolutely, volunteers are needed up there. So thank you for being with us tonight. Beth.
Hi, I'm Beth, and I am with the Southeastern Synod. I live in Franklin, Tennessee, and I think you met Jeff Lecision this morning. He and I work very closely together. Pastor Morgan Gordy is our current disaster ministry person out of the Synod, and we've recently hired a new gentleman, David Heinrich, who will be replacing her in a few months. Um, we are a synod of 4 states, lots of miles and lots of disasters. So we always have something going on. We currently are very involved in Helene response. We're still doing 23, 24, and 25 response of tornadoes in almost all of our states, along with flooding. Um, I chair the Disaster Ministry Committee for our synod, and we're blessed to have people representing each of those states, both as committee members and also as synod volunteer response coordinators. They help connect all the people in the area with the synod and the synod office, and try to keep our hands around all the needs that we can to help serve the area. I serve as the Middle Tennessee coordinator for that, and that's a volunteer position. And I also head up a team of crisis cleanup volunteers who man the phones, largely if there's an event in our synod, but several of our team members will get on whenever and help as they can across the country. So that's a real good way for folks who can't get out and swing a hammer to serve. And we do appreciate that they are willing to do that. Team Rubicon, you may know Kate Amaral from our state of Tennessee. I don't know if you've ever met her, but
I'm Pennsylvania. I'm
but
Pennsylvania,
Kate's from
so
Tennessee.
no.
Yeah, yeah. I just thought across the organization you might have met her, but she is a real go-getter. And I met Amy in Washington this year at the Community of Practice for Lutheran Disaster Response. And Julia, were you there?
I was there too,
Your face,
yes.
yeah, your face is familiar. Anyway, I've been serving since, well, I started really with Katrina and the 2010 floods in Middle Tennessee that kind of took out half of our city here in Nashville. And then with our major tornadoes in 2020, along with the pandemic and so on, I've been deeply involved. And one of the things that we do need to be able to learn more about is getting volunteer teams. We have had folks from Minnesota come and help us, and we've actually have a couple of churches that will put teams together, but we'd like to grow that largely because of our physical distance from one another and to be able, as somebody said, to get a little bit more local support and have teams that can go help locally. So I'm looking forward to learning from you all about that part of it. We do tend to sit on long-term recovery committees and hang out till the bitter end. And I think you all talked about unmet needs tables this morning, and we do offer a lot of training around that. And we can talk more about that later. But the position that our group is able to really fulfill right now is that kind of long-term support and with grant funding and so forth. So anyway, thanks for offering this up. I'm glad to be here.
Thrilled to have you with us. And just so you know, we look to you all for guidance in Southeastern Synod. I mean, you have the most experience, and Morgan Gordy is a tremendous mentor to several of us. And Glenn and I were both at the community of practice with you. So just so glad you're here with us tonight.
Thank you.
Jeff, we cannot hear you, unfortunately. Jeff, we can't hear you. You're not on mute, but if you want to try working with your video or audio and just put some information in the chat, we can check it there. Ian, I'm going to go to you next.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Julia, and the Lutheran Disaster Response of Southeastern Pennsylvania for hosting this. This is phenomenal. You have some really great speakers. My name is Ian Costello. I'm the founder of the Keswick Village Community Resilience Coalition. We are a hyper local a group of concerned citizens who all live in a part of Abington Township in eastern Montgomery County, who are just looking to be more prepared and make our homes more resilient. We have a very lovely little village center around which we live, and we spent a lot of money to live there, and the schools are very good, and we want to make sure that that stays true for a long time. I see that we have one other person on here from our group, Christian, who I will turn it to after me. Yeah, we're very small. We are just starting about this last summer, but it's just coming out of a concern for the all we see getting stripped away for all of the types of preparedness, mitigation, the things that happen typically at the federal level, and all of that responsibility is being pushed down on our local and state emergency managers. And just as a point of contention, I have been emailing my township emergency manager since 2019 and have never got a response back from him. And so that just makes me feel like we have to do something. I'm not just going to sit around. We had the big SPS factory fire just about a year ago, which many of us watched the 600,000 square feet of that building burn to the ground from our houses. And the wind happened to be blowing in a different direction than our houses that day. But hope is not a plan. So we are planning to do more than just hope that things will go well. And I will turn it over to Christian. Christian is actually my next door neighbor, and is also just a great person who is willing to donate some of his time and his expertise to what we have to do. Oh, and just in closing, I was in Southeast Virginia during Helene, which got way overshadowed because everyone was thinking North Carolina. And I'm grateful and I appreciate everybody and all the work that happened in North Carolina. But just, government works on borders, and disasters don't care where the county line is, where the state line is. And then I got to meet Julia, and the reason that we are tied in here is because I got to meet Julia up in Tioga County, doing some work with their long-term recovery groups up there, and I'm just really grateful to be able to bring some of that, all the things that we've learned back to our local community, because we all live somewhere, and if that place is not safe, then we're not willing to go out to other places and help other people. So we're just looking to build some local resilience. And with that, Christian, I'll turn it over to you.
Hello, everybody.
Good evening.
Hi, my name is Christian. As Ian mentioned, I do live in Keswick Village here in southeastern Pennsylvania. Willie wasn't preparing a speech, but that's all right. I do have a background in emergency services, graduated Montco Fire Academy, ran with a number of local fire departments here in Abington Township and Rockledge, Pennsylvania. So, the emergency services, community assistance. So I was also a Boy Scout. So I get the idea of how important it is to provide like a local support net for sure and have that in place in terms of disaster or, even otherwise. And I've been away from the emergency preparedness bit for a little while, but I'd like to get more involved lately. I guess in terms of work, I had the safety and compliance for a company that is a national brand. So I do have an ongoing experience with safety and compliance, and I think that can certainly lend itself well to emergency preparedness and disaster relief because any little bit helps. And I do appreciate Ian's spearheading of this. I can definitely echo some of his observations. Sometimes it is a little difficult, penetrating the local emergency services for assistance and communication. I've experienced that myself on the inside, and certainly it's the case on the outside. But that being said, certainly interested in volunteering my time and offering any expertise. Certainly like the aspect of demolition. That sounds fun, and if we can help people along the way, I'm all for it. So I think that's all I got to say.
Thank
Nice to
you,
meet everybody.
Christian.
For
So
sure.
glad to have you here tonight.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Christian.
All right, so Sue, would you mind saying hello and where you're from?
Yes, Sue Bruner from the Quakertown area. And Linda called me to see if I would be interested in helping out again. I did some in the past years ago with Lutheran response teams. And I said yes. And she let me know that you were having this meeting tonight so I could learn a little bit more. And I'm willing to volunteer and help out wherever needed.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Amanda.
Oh, that's really dark. Sorry about that. I'm Amanda Schlick. I work with Julia and Linda with Lutheran Disaster Response. I'm a program administrator, so I primarily have done a lot of the behind the scenes work, both for Berks County flooding from 2023 and Hurricane Ida.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, Amanda keeps us all in line. Anna Marie. I will come back to you, Anna Marie. Rachel, great to have you here. If you don't mind saying hi.
My video is slow. Hang on. Maybe? Yes. Sort of.
There we
Hello.
go.
Yes, I am freshly done with work and arrived a tiny bit late, but luckily didn't miss much. I'm Rachel. Up until very recently, I worked with Julia and Linda and Amanda on the Methodist side of disaster recovery. And mostly doing disaster case management with folks affected by Hurricane Ida. And yeah, I'm doing I'm doing something sort of related now and still hanging out at the Methodist office. My contract work as a case manager ended recently, but I am now working in a full-time position there. So I'm still sort of doing similar stuff. So and I like hanging out with Julia and Linda anytime I can and Amanda. So, I'm always in for a fun time in helping others.
Thanks, Rachel.
Yeah.
Great to have you with us. Stephanie.
Hello. My name is Stephanie. I actually was also working with Team Rubicon up until I was a volunteer leader with them recently. And then Tim Cohen, who's on the Philly team now, asked me to come here to help lead some of the Philly folks with you guys. So I'm here on mission as still a part of the mission, just more as a community leader with experience.
Thrilled to have you with us representing Team Rubicon, fantastic partners to us. Brian.
Back to Linda.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Van Name. I'm a member of the Asbury United Methodist Church, part of their AIM Council. And I just recently kind of stepped into the role of the UMCOR position. So just kind of trying to find my footing with it and learn more about things. I was sent this information from the head of our AIM Council, Carl Kramer.
Brian, thrilled that you're with us tonight and want to make sure you connect with our colleague Denise Shelton. If you haven't heard her name yet, she is our point of contact for Encore that we work really closely with here. So, man, just make sure you get connected with her. She's wonderful, and that's who Rachel has been working with. So glad to have you with us tonight. Nyla.
Hi everyone. I just want to put my camera on because now I can say hi. But yeah, no, it's nice to meet you. I'm Nyla. I am a graduate student at Rutgers University. And I work in practice and also in research with Black churches, and how they are adapting to disasters and climate change. So yeah.
Thank you. So glad you're here with us. And I am going to give Anna Marie a chance to see if you can get on audio. There you go.
Okay, I'm here. Hi. Sorry about that. I couldn't find my mute button earlier. So I'm Anna Marie Lebowski. I'm from Northwestern PA. I saw the information about this call on Facebook and thought it sounded very interesting. My church takes a mission trip every year, and we've done disaster response. We've worked through Lutheran disaster response a couple times. We went to Nashville years ago. We've been to West Virginia. We were in Kentucky a couple of years ago, New Jersey. But I'm mainly interested in learning about how to kind of get involved with existing teams. We used to have about 30 people who went on our mission trips, and with an aging congregation and shrinking congregation, we're down to about 10 people. So we're looking at ways that we can maybe tie into some other things that are already happening, so that we can keep the people that want to still be involved out there and doing some things. And several of us had actually signed up with Team Rubicon a couple of years ago. And I don't think any of us have deployed yet at this point. We just haven't found the time to do it. But we do have a group of people that, are definitely interested in doing some disaster response work.
Fabulous. And I think, especially Glenn and Dawn can speak a little later about ways to connect with some of the teams that already exist. So we'll make sure we get that out there to you. Want to give Jeff one last chance if you want to try again to introduce yourself, Jeff. All right. We will move on from that. And Amy, if you wouldn't mind putting the slides back up, and also encourage anybody who would like to share their information in the chat to do so, so we can connect with each other as you would like. Like so anything, affiliation, email address, those kinds of things. So again, back to the building a team, joining a team. There's examples up there of individual churches. My home church is Trinity Lutheran in Lansdale. I got started, like lots of people in this work, as a volunteer for Katrina with my church. Some of the team examples are Trinity Lutheran in Wernersville, who Kevin and Dawn are on with us. And Lower Susquehanna Synod team has a team. Glenn leads that. So there's a couple things, a couple ways we'll talk about things tonight. But Amy, next slide, please. All right, Glenn, if you can take it away here.
All right. Julia kind of asked me to talk a little bit about why volunteers are important. And I think in many respects, we're preaching to the choir tonight based on the way you've introduced yourself and the kind of work that you've done. But what we've experienced with all the storms that we've had is that it really does require volunteers to help with the labor involved in rebuilding a home. When there is a federally declared disaster, there is a FEMA grant that homeowners are often eligible for. And if you can try to imagine rebuilding your home with about $40,000, you can understand why volunteer labor is important to help reduce that cost. From a faith-based perspective, too, we recognize that we have a calling to serve our neighbor. I'm a Lutheran, and often we quote Martin Luther when we talk about our faith, and he is known to have said that God himself will milk the cows through him whose vocation that is. So, in other words, when we are doing the work that we do, God is doing that work through us. And you'll often see lots of faith traditions with shirts that say God's work, our hands. That's a theme in the Lutheran Church. We actually have a God's work, our hands Sunday in September. That's usually emblazoned on the shirts that my group wears. Luther also has said that every occupation has its own honor before God. Ordinary work is a divine vocation. In our daily work, no matter how important or mundane it may seem, we serve God by serving the neighbor, and we participate in God's own ongoing providence for the human race. So I think that's really the important thing to keep in mind. That's why we do what we do. That's why we offer the opportunities for members of congregations to get involved in the work that we do, because all of us have a desire to serve in some way, whether that's physically being able to go and do the demolition and rebuilding, or that's helping to raise funds for those who go, or that's helping to do some of the administrative tasks, the volunteering for a crisis cleanup, as has been mentioned. All of those things help to speed the recovery of people to get back home again. And, you know, the church is made up of a group of people who are common in the sense that they have a common belief system, but unique in the sense that we all have different God-given abilities. And so we look forward to having people with different skill sets being involved in helping to do the work that's involved. And you know, I'm a pastor. I don't have any skills, but I've learned a lot in the process of going along and listening to the people who do. And as a result, I've been able to put flooring in my own home and do some other work because I learned it on disaster response mission trips. So it's something that is important to be able to continue to build the resiliency and capacity to respond in that way. Is that helpful, Julia?
Yep, that's great. Thank you. Next slide, Amy, please. So the way we do the work, and a lot of ways we connect with other organizations to get this work done, is through the VOAD. I mentioned early on that I serve currently as president of the VOAD. We all rotate through that position. When I say we all, I mean representatives from many different organizations who are participating in this work, from ones that you're familiar with, like American Red Cross and the Salvation Army, to faith-based organizations like some of those on this call, to groups like Team Rubicon, who are veterans groups, and many, many other organizations. There's a national expression of VOAD, and each state has their own VOAD. So it's one of the ways we can kind of, at least, you know, when we're in contact with North Carolina VOAD, when Helene and Milton were hitting, we could follow North Carolina VOAD's website and Facebook pages and kind of know that we were speaking the same language and understanding kind of what information they were putting it out and how we could read kind of what they're stating their urgent needs were and what they anticipated their needs were. And it also kind of lends credibility to the network as far as we all operate under standards of, we call them points of consensus. So it helps us kind of level set what we're getting into when we travel to different places. So we'll come back to some of that as far as vetting and so forth. But what I would like to do now is show a video. Amy, if you can cue that up. And the video is, it will be coming back to more in Helene and North Carolina, but this video just happens to be of a survivor in North Carolina that a number of folks on this team have worked at the survivor's property, so that's kind of unique too. But we'll use it as a touch point for just some aspects of recovery and kind of again, why this means so much.
My husband and I moved here in 2015 with the plan to grow our own food, have a farm, make a homestead, and live a quiet, healthy, peaceful life. And that's what we started to do. We have 4 acres. We transformed the property into a beautiful farm with 30 chickens, honeybees. We grew vegetables. Our cabin, that was our business. And I was in charge of the plants, and that was our garden.
And did you sell the barbecue?
It was heartbreaking to lose it all. The entire property is destroyed. Our house is flooded and full of mud. The entire lower floor is gutted. I don't know, we have every problem you can think of. The creek also diverted from its original location. It cut through our property. We have so much debris on the property that it is unrecognizable. It's more than apocalyptic. We did have a Buddha that survived.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you believe in Buddha or
Yes.
just for you as a decoration?
No, I
or
believe.
You believe?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
awesome.
This is a gigantic metal culvert. God knows where that came from. Probably a road. We don't have any other way to get rid of debris except to burn it. It definitely gives a feeling of an apocalypse here because a lot of different properties have these big burn piles right now, and you can see the smoke, and it's just kind of crazy. And we still have mountains of debris on the property. This car is not ours. We were able to find that person through his ID. So yeah, that was our bee house, which my husband just built this year, and we had our first hive this year, and we collected honey from it twice. And then none of this debris was here before. This was all flat land. So this was our Airbnb cabin that my husband and I renovated ourselves. It was very successful. We called this cabin the slowdown cabin. So unfortunately, it's all destroyed now. I can show you the inside. The cabin got jacked up during the flood. It moved about 20 feet this way. So there was a tree that came through the wall of the shower. Here, this hole, there was a tree that was through here. We cut it out, and this is where the sink was. And I used to love this view because when you looked out the window here as a guest, there was our beautiful vegetable garden here. This is the creek, and outside here you can imagine there used to be a barrel sauna. It is kind of heartbreaking to see it all gone, but everyone says, well, you'll rebuild. I don't know. At about 7:15 in the morning, and we had water coming in through the crawl space of the house. This whole part of the property was a tsunami already. The only option we had was to go up, which is here. So we came back here. My husband got the wire cutter. We pulled it back, and we just went up the mountain. This is how we got out. If we couldn't have gone uphill, I don't know what we would have done. We were really feeling desperate by the second week, and we kept asking for help, and nobody was coming. And I finally put it out on Facebook. I was like, no one has come to help us. And the wives of Facebook picked that up and told their husbands in Alabama, and they said, you need to get up there. I thought they were coming with tools, and I saw all of these machinery. And I rolled down my window and I said, are you from Alabama? And they said, yes. And I got out and I hugged them and I said, thank you so much. We were so grateful, and we were calling that the second flood because the second flood was the flood of help from people from all over this country who came from Pennsylvania, from Iowa, from Wisconsin, Minnesota. And we are so incredibly grateful for that, not only for the help of cleaning, but for the fact that it gave us faith to continue, because we were really just feeling like we couldn't do it anymore. Every little bit of help adds up to something. I feel very grateful that the woman I talked to was so compassionate and kind and let me tell her about what we lost. Yeah, we're grateful to be alive.
Yeah, that's right.
We haven't had time to personally thank everyone, and I just want to say thank you to all of them, because we will never forget the kindness of strangers that left their own families, their own jobs, their own lives to come here and help people that they've never even met. We're just eternally grateful for that.
Thank you.
This will be the last video I make for now.
Well, Uh, thanks so much, Amy. I want to just note the organization who produced that video is called the Tzu Foundation. They are one of our VOAD partners as well. So they play a really unique role in disaster. But again, an example of one of the many partners we work with. Um, and we're going to come back to that video as we go through this presentation, just in terms of referencing it and kind of thinking about, okay, how do those volunteers get from hearing about a Facebook post to actually being on this property and doing repair work and all of the steps. It made it sound like it kind of happened instantaneously, but there's many steps that happen in between to get the volunteers to that site. And again, several of those volunteers are on our call tonight, and Amy knows the family personally. So it's really like really getting walking with people in the trenches. So we will, can you put the next slide up, Amy? Keep rolling through here.
You're not seeing the slides. I'm like, can she tell me when she wants me to stop?
No, there we go. Okay.
Here we go.
Very good. All right. Glenn, could you take us through this slide as well?
Certainly. I think, again, many of you have done this work, but others are asking some questions about ways to connect. There are a number of organizations, as Julia mentioned, who are part of the disaster response world. Many of them are connected. In fact, probably all of them are connected through VOADs. They're all part of national VOAD, but have regional expressions like Lutheran Disaster Response and UMCOR and others. Some of them have very specific responsibilities that they take on. Presbyterian Disaster Assistance, as an example, is an organization that specializes in volunteer housing. So if you go on the Presbyterian Disaster Assistance website, simply Google that, it'll come right up for you. They will show you all the places where they are actively responding to disasters. Primarily, they have housing for groups of up to maybe 20 volunteers. And many times it's congregations that open up their facilities to be a partner in response in their local area. But there are other organizations that welcome volunteers, like Team Rubicon. Mennonite Disaster Services is an organization that is active almost everywhere there's a disaster. And everywhere they're active, they kind of fall into a niche that is needed. They learn about the response that's unique to an area. Where Amy lives, she'll talk a little bit about it, but almost everybody has a bridge on their property because they're in the mountains. And Mennonite Disaster Services is spending a lot of time building bridges in that area. I ran into Mennonites when I was responding in Puerto Rico, and there they were focusing on roofs. So it's a matter of looking at the kind of work that's being done by organizations in your area. If you are minded to work with Lutheran Disaster Response, and live in the eastern part of the world here in Pennsylvania, Julia would welcome your phone call or email and be able to help you connect with organizations that are doing active response. If you're in the central part of the state, I would be willing to do that as well. Anne Marie, when you introduced yourself as being in the northwestern part of Pennsylvania, I thought of the colleagues that Julia, Amy, and I have in southwest Pennsylvania, in the Pittsburgh area, Jerry and Sylvia Lynn, who are active in taking groups to various parts. I believe they will be going down to North Carolina around the same time that my group will be going later this spring. So it's a matter of finding organizations that are doing that work. And again, there are lots of different places to look for that information. Um, I think that's a good
It's great.
summary. If there's other things I can help with that more specifically, I'm happy to do that.
Great. And we're going to be sending out some resources that include some additional information about how to connect. So that'll be in those additional resources as well. And Amy, could you go to the next slide? Thank you. So we want to talk a little bit and about some aspects of this in terms of having a good volunteer experience. So one of the things that Glenn mentioned was, going through trusted organizations. And Dawn, if you don't mind saying a little bit about making sure a host site is someplace that you want to go. And if you wouldn't mind, Dawn, sharing any questions you make sure you ask when you are talking with people about when you're planning a trip and those types of things.
Sure. We usually, well, we found over the years that it is just vital to be with well-known organizations, and you gave a lot of really good examples tonight on where to find them. Where you want to really be careful is we at times have gone out of country, and there's some really good organizations for out of country mission trips also, but you need to really be careful with especially the orphanages. They're very good at tugging at the heartstrings with the orphanages, and many times they are scams. I actually have a really good article on, what they do, how they do that, but it's just very, very important that you know that the organization you're dealing with is a legit organization. And, there's many people on this call that you can probably run a name through. But it really, we found, was the orphanages that had the most scams going on. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
And so those, just asking good questions, finding trusted partners, I think verifying lots of information, some key information as far as what are the housing arrangements, what kind of facilities will be provided in terms of showers, meals, tools, and those kinds of things. What are the safety protocols that the host site has? Will there be training provided? What are the daily expectations as far as starting and ending the day? And I'm just going to open it up to are any of our hosts here tonight, Glenn, Dawn, Kevin, others. What are some questions that you make sure you ask when you are connecting to a host site?
For me, the two biggest questions are what you already said with regard to housing. Who's my housing partner? Where will my people be kept? And will that be a safe place? Do I need to bring a kitchen crew, or will the host site provide meals for my team? And then who's my construction partner? Is there somebody who's going to be organizing the work that my group will be doing? Will they have on-site construction leads, or do I need to provide that? Those are, I think, are the biggest questions. And then if you're traveling by plane, obviously you're not taking hammers and crowbars and things like that with you. Will they have the tools you need to do the job? So those are the important things that we focus on.
Thank you. Let's go to the next slide. All right, Kevin, would you share a little bit about how you recruit people and the kind of conversations you have with folks? And while you're coming off mute, I'm going to note that that cute little volunteer in the top right-hand corner is my daughter. That that she was that's her doing some volunteer work in Philadelphia a couple years ago. Whenever you're ready, Kevin.
Is she thrilled to be there? It's hard to say.
That's her regular, that's how she looks at me generally.
Yes. When we go out, we encourage uh, anyone who's even considering going on a trip to join in. There's always a job for everyone. We encourage people who've never done this type of stuff to include themselves in our projects. It's important to not discourage people just because they say, "Oh, I don't have any skills." It's like what was mentioned earlier. Many people go on these trips and they come back with a wealth of knowledge that they may have not even known that they had, that was uncovered during the course of the trip. An important part of that, I think, is to have people on the trip that can sit and listen to the homeowners. It's very important to listen to their stories. It helps them as well as helps the volunteers to create that bond, and gives the people recovering an opportunity to share their stories and what they've gone through. So most of you have done this kind of stuff. Just make sure that when you put your teams together, you make sure that you don't discourage people just because they feel they may not be able to swing a hammer. I always tell people I like working with unskilled people and teaching them how to do skilled work. A lot of people will say, "Well, I don't know." They may be afraid of a drill or a power saw, but it's like if you can use a food processor and you don't put your fingers in that container and process your fingers with whatever you're processing, chances are you can learn how to run a tool because it's the same thing. You don't put your fingers where the spinny parts are. And everybody can learn that. Everybody knows that. And it's a comfort level that has to be achieved. So just don't discourage. I would think none of us do this, but never say, "Oh no, you can't go because you don't have any skills that we would be able to utilize." There's always something that those people can bring to the team.
And I like Pete's comment in the chat. Sometimes those with no skills are the easiest to train. And I always hate saying that people are unskilled or don't have skills. It's just different skills and not just traditional skills we think of. But there's also all sorts of things that we have vocations around that we just need to uncover and bring to the team. So absolutely appreciate those sentiments.
When I was training for my initial certification with the chainsaws, I was amazed at how many bad habits I had, learning on my own prior to that. And I'm so glad to learn the correct way.
Very good, especially a chainsaw. Let's go to the next slide, Amy. All right, so these are the real nuts and bolts of what we want to talk about here. And Dawn, I'm going to ask you to kick us off with some of the insurance and forms components. And the reason some of these things are important are just to help think about, okay, I have this great idea. I want to organize something. And we use the word church here, but it's really any group. If you're traveling as a group, what kinds of things do you want to think about to keep your folks safe and from logistics, like concrete logistics, like accommodations and transportation, to keeping insurance and medical forms and things like that up to date? Just best practices. So Dawn, I'm going to turn it over to you here.
Okay, so first regarding the insurance, if you're driving to the site, you want to make sure all the drivers have proper insurance on their vehicles. If you're taking your own vehicles, you want to, make sure they're all properly licensed and so forth. Because it's our church that sends the teams out. Our church actually got an extra endorsement with our policy on the church. We're with Brotherhood Mutual, and we got an endorsement that's called Relief Activity Additional Coverages. So we've never had any major problems, but if we were, this would offer some protections, additional protections to our church when we actually leave and do any kind of mission work. And then regarding forms, before anybody goes along on the trip, they have to all provide to me a copy of their health insurance card. So I do make a copy of that and have that within a file. I also have a health history form that everybody is required to complete. It is kind of confidential when you get into that stuff, so I make sure that it's in an envelope, that people can't just see what's on the forms. I keep that envelope with me at all times during the trip. That it goes along to the work sites. Sometimes your teams might be divided into more than one team. When that happens, whoever is in charge with the other team or teams that I'm not with, they will get their own envelope with forms and insurance cards for the people that are on their team. And this is just to make sure everybody has the most protections that they can have when we're on any kind of trip like this, that if something would happen, that they'd have a medical emergency at the work site, or if they would be injured at the work site, that they'd be able to get the proper care because we have the information we need for them. Anything else that you had questions on with that?
No, that's great. And just to note that that's the organization, that's the sending organization that Dawn's talking about, and which makes complete sense. But just noting that the host organization may have additional requirements as well. Glenn, would you mind talking a little bit about the transportation and how you travel to host sites and some examples of how you've done it?
Sure. My group's done 25 trips. We were down the Gulf 5 times. And for each of those trips, we actually flew either to New Orleans or to Biloxi, Mississippi, and then rented vehicles while we were there. The very first trip I ever went on was organized by somebody else. And I have a Class B CDL license, and he knew that, and he expected that by paying one bus driver and me, we'd get the whole group down to Biloxi, Mississippi. And I said, and what's going to happen once we get there? Because the whole group's not going to stay together. They divide the group up into smaller groups. So we ended up flying down and renting vehicles, and it cost the same as it would have if we would have taken a big bus and had one vehicle to take everybody everywhere they needed to go. So that was a really smart choice. But depending where we go, obviously you can't drive to Puerto Rico. So, you determine the route that you need to go, whether that's driving. When we were responding to Sandy, we were able to drive there, and it took us about 2.5 hours. So we were able to do that, and those trips were a whole lot less expensive. But sometimes we will have, as Dawn mentioned, individuals drive their own vehicles. Most of our people drove their own vehicles down to North Carolina in November, but I had a group of 5 that didn't have vehicles that would have been suited for going, so I rented one van and we went down in that way. It just depends on where you're going, how many people you have to get where you're going, and all of that sort of thing. The best way to do that. There are organizations, if you're flying somewhere, that will provide good rates for groups that do mission work. Fellowship Travel is an organization in Virginia that I've worked with pretty extensively when we do fly. But we like when we can drive, and driving to North Carolina is a little bit easier than flying. We're able to do that more than once a year. When we've flown to the Gulf or other places, those trips are pretty expensive, and we are only able to raise the funds to do one trip a year. So, um, trying to think if that answers the questions that you have there,
I
Julia.
think it gives a good overview of different kind of approaches, whether something's close enough, just the things you have to consider, how far it is, how many groups
Sure.
need a vehicle, those kinds of things. But all those little details and getting in the weeds with those kinds of things. Um, and I'm just going to mention here the accommodations and the fundraising, because we'll be getting into some more of the accommodations when Amy talks to give some examples of things. But really, with the accommodations, there could be all sorts of different ways of going about where your lodging's going to be. And I'm going to refer to something from Glenn again here. So I know Glenn's mentioned to me that there's been times that absolutely they stay in dormitory style housing, like you see in that picture up there. Rachel and I stayed in that room, if that looks familiar, Rachel, and Glenn was next door in the men's dorms. We were all at a training at this dormitory last year. But sometimes staying in a hotel is less expensive and makes more sense based on how you're going to be feeding yourselves and things like that. Amy, go ahead. I see you have your hand up.
I was just going to mention regarding the transportation, one of the conversations that I try and make sure that I have with everyone, but a good thing for you to think about when you're going someplace is to ask about the terrain. Because if I'm asking you to drive to a location, I've started having that conversation with people, especially if they're going up into the high country. Some of those roads are pretty rough, and even getting in camp, you got to cross a creek. So, a regular car can do it, but you just need to be aware that sometimes a little bit higher elevation or your tires. So that's a good question to ask too if you're when you're getting transportation.
I was really
Very good.
worried, Amy, about my rented van getting into the driveway of that home in the video that you showed.
Yes.
A lot of that driveway was washed away. So,
And then I just want to mention the fundraising strategies. There's many different ways to fundraise for this kind of thing. Elaine Keller, who's with the Heavenly Helpers, and she was with us this morning. One of my favorite things that they do is they do a hoagie sale every year and they do spaghetti dinners. So that's very traditional churchy stuff. That's one way to do it. There's also things called Thrivent grants, Thrivent Action Team grants. That's something that is available to a lot of faith-based organizations, but there's also other kinds of local community grants, getting a sponsorship organization. Some of the volunteers we work with locally here, there's a member of the Heavenly Helpers team. She works for Merck, and she gets a corporate match for her volunteering. So there's a number of different ways you can go about those types of things. Um, so just want to mention those kinds of things. We're going to transition to Amy very shortly, but before we do that, I want to mention again, my ulterior motive is, well, I want everyone to go and have these wonderful experiences. Again, my ulterior motive is that we build up a volunteer pool here locally as well in Pennsylvania. We are not a high attention area, and we have had a number of significant flooding events since 2018, and we really need to build up our volunteer pool. So the types of things we have been responding to here are some of them are undeclared events and smaller, very low attention disasters, but great need. And then we have had declared events like Hurricane Debbie that some of you mentioned you've volunteered with up in Tioga County, and Hurricane Ida, which a number of us have done volunteering with as well. So we do, again, when I say we, it's our partners in the VOAD and us here with Lutheran Disaster Response. We work to create long-term recovery committees to identify survivors who have the greatest need. How are we going to fund those cases? How are we going to get supplies for those cases? And how are we going to find volunteers? And how are we going to accommodate those volunteers? So a lot of the work we do locally are one-day events like Saturdays, or in the summertime, we'll often do several days of a week because a lot of the volunteers we attract are more local. So just keeping in mind that there are opportunities locally for one-day events. We do also, though, have housing. So we have housed people in a number of different churches. We get cots from Department of Human Services. Have provided us with wonderful cots, and some of the local churches have provided really nice accommodations. So just wanting you to know that we do volunteer work here locally when we need to, and would love to have you join us for those opportunities. I am seeing some things in the chat too from Ian. Absolutely fewer presidential declarations, 100%, and that is partly why we are having these conversations. That and climate change are, in my mind, the double whammy. And the comment that you put in there as far as processing trauma and I mean, we have a huge component of our work that we call spiritual and emotional care. And Amy, maybe you can touch on that a little bit when you give your part as well. There's a number of organizations that focus on that, and we would collectively, I would say, as a VOAD, want to continue to do better with that component of our work. So appreciate your comments there. And Amy, I'm going to turn it over to you now, if you don't mind taking it and sharing a little bit specifically about the opportunities in North Carolina or the Carolinas.
Absolutely. So before I kind of get into some of this other stuff, I wanted to share a little bit about how we show up in a disaster. And I think it's really important to note, whether you're in Pennsylvania or in Puerto Rico or Western North Carolina, one of the things that I've learned the most is how much culture impacts how we respond. Appalachia culture is very unique, and you have to take that culture in combination with what happened with the storm to make sure that the response is appropriate. And one of the ways, when we think of Lutheran disaster response and we think of this disaster cycle, our focus is being on an accompaniment model. We want to come alongside people. And so in the past, yes, I have this picture, but we think of a lot of times as mission trips, and we use that verbiage. And one of the things that I would ask us to consider is, instead of thinking about it as a mission trip where it has a connotation of coming in to help and save people and fixing what's wrong with what's going on there, is rather to think about it as a volunteer or a servant trip. Just by changing our language, sometimes we can start to change perceptions. And what I love about this picture is that the homeowner is here working with these people, but you don't know who it is, because it is a model of working with and showing our faith just by being there. Like Glenn said earlier, God's work, our hands. It's through our work that we're sharing our faith, and we're not proselytizing. So there is, we've all heard the mantra of give a man a fish, you feed him a meal, teach him how to fish, and you give him a skill. He can eat many meals on his own. But there is her name is Reverend Lydia Nashangwi, and she is in South Africa. And she has a really interesting way of saying this, and I'm just going to read what she has. Come and fish with me in the Zambezi River. As we are fishing, you understand why I don't catch as many fish as you think I should, because I have to watch out. One eye is in the water looking for fish, the other eye is looking for crocodiles and hippopotami. There are some seasons when I cannot fish at all because it's too risky. I may die of malaria. So the new paradigm is don't go out as missionaries to teach the people in the margins how to fish. Instead, go and fish with them. And once you become one with them and fish with them, you will become aware of their difficulties. And then, of course, it will make us less judgmental of other people who are at the margins, and it will make us view them as less separate to us. And so I really like this idea of coming, and rather than coming and doing for someone else, we're showing up to volunteer and serve. We're supporting the work that's already happening. And the people who've lived here for generations and know this area better than any outsider. We're coming up and working alongside of them. And so this idea of connect, belong, relate, really, Ian was saying it in the chat, really getting a chance to learn someone's story. Everyone has a different story. The current situation that they're in doesn't define them. And when we listen, we can help with that healing process. We also need to think about who has the power. Yeah, think about, I lost my train of thought. Think about the long-term impact, because projects last even after volunteers are gone. So if we think about Jennifer Patesh, who was in the video, they got support in 2 weeks by putting out a Facebook plea, which is not typically how support shows up. But there's been 2 organizations that we have been working with them and helping to provide. I've sent my volunteers to that house over the last couple months, and it's gonna take a long time for them to recover, and we're not going to be able to get to everything in the 1 week that you're here, but it's okay. It's also really important to remember flexibility. And having a heart of flexibility is so important because things shift on a daily basis. Um, I can't tell you how many times, even when Glenn's group was here, we're like, okay, now we're going to this address. Nope, we're not here. We're going to this address. Because permits change. Organizations forget how many volunteers they have coming, waiting on approvals. Something else comes up at the higher priority. And so flexibility is just really, really important. So I like to show this picture. It's from a Mennonite resource, and I will share that with you so you can share it with everyone else, Julia. What I like to ask is what's happening in these pictures? And so looking at these pictures, what do you think is happening? What story do you think is being told? Anyone have? When I see the pictures on the left, really, it looks like this white man has come in and is helping this indigenous person with something. And it looks like he's providing something to this person. And that's what that picture is telling. But what's actually happening is better represented over here on the right, because this indigenous individual is teaching this white man how to create the letters in their language. And so it's a better representation of what's happening. And so it's really important that when we come into disaster spaces or any type of volunteer work that we do, that when we share the story of what's happening, we use the pictures to best represent that. And so this is another set of photos. This is a group of middle schoolers that went out to a home in Beacon Village. Pete, you said you were in Swananoa. You might have been in, yeah. And if you haven't, they're featured on what's it called? This Old House. I always want to forget the name of that show. But the entire house was flooded. And what's actually happening is the homeowner is this person, and she's telling the story of what it was like to live in that house growing up and about the storm itself.
Was that at the base of a mountain?
No.
Okay.
Well,
It,
there's a hill behind that,
okay, no,
on the opposite side of the street.
the homes we worked on, the water came down the mountain like a river and went through their homes and then actually headed towards the real river.
Oh, okay.
That's through their homes. So, yeah.
No, this one was actually the river overflowed and created a wall, and yeah, just came through.
Yeah, I probably saw that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty
It's
horrendous.
rough. It's rough. So when you use these pictures, it depends on which story you're trying to tell. The one on the left, I like better because it shows the homeowner in a position of power and I can see her face. Other people like the one on the right. You can see the kids. I think they like bored. Someone informed me today that they probably instead look very contemplative about the situation. I'll give that. The one on the right shows the gutted house, but it doesn't highlight and give power to the homeowner. So again, it just depends on what's the story that you want to tell. How are you going to tell your story? And thinking about the pictures and the stories that you're using to say what happened. So when you show up in a disaster, just some things to kind of remember when you're showing up to do this volunteer work. Knowing, speaking with respect and listening with an open heart. One of the biggest pieces that we can do is in that social emotional support. And that spiritual support. And there is, LDR has a training coming out, and soon it should come to everyone, and it's called MESS Ministries. MESS stands for Mental, Emotional, Spiritual Support. And I know Beth probably had the training. Yeah, she's saying yes. I had the training. I'm hoping to go through the train the trainer and spread it more throughout the Carolinas. But it's going to come to your neighborhood soon, and I would recommend it. It's a very useful training to provide simple skills that you can use to work with anyone who's in a trauma state. Whether that's in the immediate trauma where you just need to support them, or if it's or stabilize them, or if it's in a more long-term situation and you're looking at how to best support them. But it gives you great tools. So I'm going to plug that. So Helene, just want to kind of give you real brief kind of overview. This is a map of all the places that we have deployed volunteers to in Western North Carolina. So this is the border with Virginia up here at the top. This is the Tennessee border coming down here. South Carolina border is down here. 39 counties were declared a federal disaster zone in North Carolina. So it's a pretty, this is not even representative of all of that. But there's been 4 different buckets of types of work that we've been able to engage in. And when I started my position last January, almost a year ago, they said, hey, you've already got these adult volunteers that are coming. Oh, yeah. And you also got to find work for high school volunteers that are coming over the summer. There's about 600 of them. And I said, well, they can't all do construction. And so that idea of flexibility and thinking outside the box of how can people show up in this disaster space. And so the first area that we always kind of think of is in construction, which can be any of the things you see here, including kind of gutting out the house that was there so that a new house can come in. And so that idea of demolition is just as important. Team Rubicon does a really good job of muck going in and cleaning out a house too. So the another oops, moving too fast. Another bucket of work is the land. So there so much of the land between the flooding and the 2000 plus landslides that occurred in the area. There's just so much that needs to be done to help the land as well. And this is a great way that people can get involved that, you know, especially our teens who want to put in hard work and hard labor, but they can't go on a construction site for various reasons. And so cleaning out streams, we're still doing it. Hopefully soon we're going to start to get into stream restoration and getting into the beds and replanting. But landscaping and sodding and cleaning up roads so that cars can get to hiking destinations. So there's lots of different ways that we can show up. The third is
Amy,
people's needs. Yeah.
Amy, if I could cut in for a second, can you flip back to that last slide?
This one?
One of the things that we are very, very conscious of is protecting our gray shirts. And especially the focus is on personal protective equipment. Long pants are uncomfortable. Work shoes are uncomfortable. Gloves can be uncomfortable. You've got to protect your workers. Eyewear seems like a real safety geeky thing. You're working around saws, any of that stuff. It's and not only that, looking at these people standing in the stream, are their inoculations up to date? Stuff to keep in the back of your mind.
Yeah. So the third bucket that we kind of work from is people's needs. People were in need prior to the storm, in desperate need, and that need has just grown. And so working in this one right here is the only nope, two ministries are represented here. So this one and this one, 2 out of the 5 pictures are things that were happening before the storm. The other 3 are warehouses and stores and cooking that was not happening before the storm, that happened because of the needs that were developed. And so getting people involved in that, especially there was a number of Glenn's team and Elaine's team that came out that really appreciated not going to a construction site, and but they wanted to do something else to help. And so they were able to connect in with some different opportunities and made a difference. And the organization so much appreciated it. Can't tell you how many thank yous I get. And the fourth bucket is building bridges. So we have partnered with Mennonite Disaster Service to build bridges. And so it's a really nice mitigation, high quality bridge that can be built in 2 weeks with volunteer support. So it's just an amazing, I'm amazed every time I think about what it is that they're able to accomplish. And so we had one group of ours go out and work on a bridge. Typically, they bring so many Mennonites down to work on them that we can't plug in. But when we can, we do try because it's a great piece too. When it's important to ask about schedule, how I run things in North Carolina is different than how other organizations do it. Pretty much my role is to make sure that you have found some housing, to make sure that you have work to do, and kind of the other details are up to you. I do start with an orientation. I really think it's important for everyone before they go out to a work site to hear about the culture, to hear about the storm, to understand some of the context of what they're going to be doing and experiencing before they set foot. And then reflection is a really important piece. So wrapping up at the end, what did you experience? What did you think? And so typically it's, you're having a breakfast, whether it's provided or you make it yourself, packing out a meal, taking a lunch with you to the site, coming back, dinner, reflection. Um, Elaine was sharing with me that they really try and eat out every meal to put money back into the economy. So I always share good locally owned and operated restaurants that are good to eat at because I think that's important too. So for us in Western North Carolina, we do not have our own housing. There is a housing crisis down here that has nothing to do with volunteers, so it makes it even worse when we're trying to find housing for volunteers. And permitting processes are not working in our favor as we try and set up our own. And this is across multiple organizations. So we primarily are using the two Lutheran camps. The one is Luther Ridge, which is very close to Asheville, and Luther Rock, which is up in the high country. It's about 45 minutes from Boone, where Appalachia State University is. This top one here is Wilderness, which is in Luther Ridge, and it's probably the most rustic that we've got, but it's a cabin, sleeps 10 people, very simple beds on wooden platforms and mattresses. And so it only goes up from there. There's, other cabins like this one, which has real beds in it, which makes it a little bit more comfortable, or staying in something like this is up in Luther Rock, which is very much like a hotel. I've had groups come and stay in hotels. I've had groups come and stay in Airbnbs. But whatever your budget is, I'm gonna help you try and find the best place for you, for your people. And this last time in November when Glenn's group came down, they did stay in a hotel and they used the church, my home church, which is maybe 2 miles away from the hotel, as like their home base, where they had their meals and fellowship and that together. Ian.
Has there been any work with Airbnb.org, their disaster survivor assistance rehousing program? I just saw that. I'm only just learning about it now.
Yes.
Okay.
And yes, and it in this area it was really hard because most of the homes that were Airbnbs were damaged in some way as well. So yeah. And then they were very picky about who would come into their Airbnb and stay for that length of time. When someone stays for a week or something, it's easier to maintain the site. So there were a lot of issues with that down here, but it was explored.
Well, that in and of itself is valuable insight. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I was talking to someone today who they had RVs with one of the Methodist groups that they were having homeowners stay in for like 3 months, 6 months while they were working on their house. And one of them turned it into a meth lab. So you never know what's going to happen. So we like to think the best of people. Yeah. I think that's all I have. Yeah, that's my neighborhood. Yeah. Sorry.
Wow. Scary stuff. Any questions for Amy in particular?
I don't have any questions, but you shared your family on slide 31 that Amy showed. My two sisters were pictured on our trip
Oh,
this November.
Down here, right?
At IAM.
Yeah, this one.
The middle picture on each end of that group of four are my sisters. I'm stuck in the middle of them in birth order.
that's great. Beth, I saw you come off mute. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that one of the things that I'd like to share, if you all don't mind, is that we've been really successful with Morgan and her persuasive ways with our local congregations, especially if they have showers in their building, that we provide air mattresses to the congregation, and then as many as they can house, we provide that. And then we do have a good process for setting up housing volunteers within your church and guidelines and some paperwork that can be used by the church. We've got a training set up for how to house volunteers, and it works well and allows congregations, especially those with older members, to be involved in ways that they couldn't be otherwise. Also,
Yeah.
we do not tend to provide food. I agree with the local economy. I remember being on a Katrina and going to Pizza Hut, and all they had was pepperoni pizza, but we went and ate it. So that is a very important piece, I think, of sharing with our volunteers how they can support the community. So thanks for saying that, Amy.
Yeah. The hard part about the churches in Western North Carolina in particular is they've maximized their space. Land is a hot commodity. There's not extra land, there's not extra space. And when the churches got back into functioning mode, they didn't have room for support to be able to house. Very, very few. And those that did have the ability to house, volunteers ran into, I can't tell you how many permitting issues. In particular, Buncombe County, where Swannanoa is, and Asheville, and the ones that got all the news press, that county does not play nicely on helping to house volunteers. So it's a shame.
Linda, I'm going to ask you first if you could say how many trips to Mississippi you made, but if we've missed anything or there's something that you think, oh, you should make sure we cover this. Linda, I met Linda when she was doing recovery work from flooding along the Delaware in 2006 or 7 or something like that. And since then, Linda, you need to say the number of how many trips you've made.
Okay, to Katrina, Mississippi
Yes.
is where I went. Ocean Springs, which people have maybe heard of. I stopped counting after I think like 33, but I did continue going there for 10 years. And a friend and I who met there at the camp where we were staying actually started a adopt-a-home project and used a local church as our nonprofit to accept donations. So we were able to fix houses once the money ran out from the government and other sources with donations from people. And we would just stop and ask for what we needed. And oftentimes we're just given it. It was miracles every day. But yes, I when I hear talk about Morgan Gordy, I was working with her in Nashville. I've been to Nashville twice, flooding twice, and several other places too. I don't know that you missed anything. I was just amazed at all that was covered with the first session, and of course this one too.
Linda, were you staying at Camp Victor?
Yes, most
Wonderful place.
Yes,
Wonderful place.
most of the time. There were other places. Sometimes we would stay, but yeah, mostly there. Sometimes we went and worked a little bit further west, and there was a camp, I believe it was a Methodist camp, that survived Katrina, that had really good housing. But I can't think of anything you missed.
Well, let me go to next steps and then open it up to questions and comments from folks. So next steps are, what we here at Lutheran Congregational Services or Lutheran Disaster Response Eastern Pennsylvania will do. We have your email addresses, so we will share opportunities with you via our distribution lists. And if you don't want to be on it, you can just unsubscribe. We will also be hosting an MLK Day event. Amanda is helping to organize that, and that'll be on the 19th at the Lutheran Seminary in Philadelphia. If anybody's interested, I'll share information on that just as a way to continue to connect. We're doing a hygiene kit making event that day. And we're also going to be trying to build out our volunteer kind of some key volunteer leaders. And really, Beth, we're building it on the Southeast Synod model for that. So we're developing some position descriptions to help with local response here so we can be more active earlier when something happens locally. So I'll be sharing those with you. So that's what we'll be doing on our end, and sharing various training opportunities that come from different places. And we do share them on our Facebook page. So what you can do is follow us on at LCS Mission. That's where we share a lot of information in like the most timely manner. Um, I would encourage you to reach out to anybody you've talked to or heard from on this call that sounds intriguing or that you might want to stay connected with. A lot of us put our contact information in the chat, so grab it and be in contact. And I would encourage you to just take small steps. Ian's taken big steps with the organizing local efforts, I know, but even just small things like figuring out with a team how to volunteer locally together with like-minded people, like at a Code Blue shelter or a food bank or something that just gets like-minded people together, that could turn into something more that requires more of a commitment at another time. And I, again, encourage you to join us at our MLK Day event. And that's where, I'll leave it for now, except for Amy, can you go to the final slide? I didn't show this on the last session, but this is my inaugural. This is, I think, 20 years ago now. That was that was at Ocean Springs too, Glenn. That was that's me in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, with members from my church. And in any case, like it's this work is addicting once you, I guess, get bitten by it. But just encourage you to all stay connected, and that's my contact information. But um, we can stop sharing and just go back to the main screen. Just want to hear from folks. Anything you want to bring up, comment on, any experience of your own you'd like to share, go ahead, Ian, kick us off.
So I'm sort of pulling my own rug out from underneath me here. But as you're looking for volunteers, especially for this kind of work, consider your local colleges that have emergency management or public safety students who were thinking about going into FEMA and probably don't feel very comfortable making that switch right now. There are a ton of really anxious juniors and seniors in college right now who don't know what the next step is. There are a ton, and I'm happy if anyone wants to reach out to me. There are a ton of emergency management programs in Eastern Pennsylvania. I've mostly done my research in North Central Pennsylvania around Tioga County and Southeastern Pennsylvania around me. So I can also look a little bit further up north, in kind of like Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, if that's where you are. But I'm happy to help make those connections, because I think that it is of benefit to you and is of benefit to them. You need volunteers, and these people are looking for ways to serve their communities, to provide the kind of experiences that they have been studying for the last 4 years, or if they're in their master's, 6 years. And they are just terrified. As most people are getting out of college because you don't know what the world holds. But I think that is a really good opportunity for you all to build a volunteer base by providing these opportunities to them, so that way they can do something. It builds their resume, and of course, you get a volunteer base.
I'm gonna go to you in a second, Steve, but I'm gonna out Nyla here a second. Nyla, was one of those students and still is a student in some regards, but we met Nyla at the National VOAD conference last year. She was a student scholar, to your point, Ian, and got to connect with a number of other student scholars, and they are tremendous and would welcome what you're talking about as far as furthering those connections. Because again, that's another like untapped group of people that we need to engage young people. Absolutely. So Ian, if we're in conversation already, but if we can continue to be in conversation, let's talk about that specifically. That'd be
Mhm.
great.
And just one
And
more plug. I see that Nyla's hands up. One more plug. Um, USAID employees who have all been
yes.
fired are desperate to continue to do their good works in the world. And they've all been forcibly repatriated back to the United States. And they have that everything that you're looking for is what they did as a job. And they would, I'm sure, love to help and be a part of your organizations. That is
Awesome.
truly thank you.
Let's go to Steve and then Nyla, and I think Linda also was motioning, but Steve, go ahead.
Okay, I'm just going to build on Ian's idea. Yes, it's great if we can build that volunteer list, but it would also be nice if we had a master list of opportunities for people. We find even with our small group, we put out, okay, here's 4 possibilities, and when can we get the greatest number of people to go on a trip? So if we had a master list of some kind of opportunities, okay, for the next couple months, these are the opportunities that are available, and could send that to the list that Ian's talking about of volunteers. I think we could match things better than we can in smaller groups.
Thanks, Steve, and I'll come back to that after we hear from Nyla and Linda. Go ahead, Nyla.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, well, thank you all for all presenting. Like this was super great, and like I hope this is like posted somewhere so that folks can have access to this information. But I agree with what Ian was saying. Like so I'm a PhD student, and like there are other PhD students like in the area or just like on the East Coast who are interested in like this type of work, both on the research side, but also like to be involved and to find ways to like, figure out best practices. So like please like feel free to reach out to me if you want to be connected to some other like people um who are interested in like both doing the work and being in person in the area, but also um like interested in on the research side and hoping maybe to help out with their work. So yeah.
Awesome, Nyla. Thank you. Linda, go ahead.
I was just going to mention something else, and that is if you're interested in disaster work, not that all communities have disasters, but you can also possibly volunteer with your municipality. They all have emergency management. The requirements to belong to a municipality, borough, or township requirements vary from county to county, I imagine it is. But it's a way to get started and involved, and you can end up being very helpful within the municipality in the time of a disaster with the knowledge many of you already have.
Ian, I know you had to respond to that. Go ahead.
Don't be surprised if you do that and you do not get the most forthwith response. I have reached out to volunteer with 4 of my local surrounding township emergency managers and 2 county emergency managers, and all of them said no, or we'll call you when something happens, which is not how that works. Which is again why we started the Keswick Village Community Resilience Coalition, because yes, there is a requirement that all municipalities and counties and states have emergency management personnel, but not everyone is taking that job as seriously as others, and you're kind of hit or miss. So definitely do reach out. but I would say it's kind of hit or miss on what you get. And sometimes you get really incredible people. There are a lot of people and a lot of emergency managers in North Central Pennsylvania that have, and also Southwestern Pennsylvania, who have really stepped up this last year. And I'm constantly talking with them on LinkedIn publicly to sort of get conversations going about what are the goods, the bads, and the uglies in the emergency management world. But just know that you get what you get, and those people are typically in legacy positions that they will be in until they decide that they retire. Um, and so it is what it is, and I know I'm a little jaded, Linda. I mean, it is the reason that I am here tonight, having this conversation with you because I agree with you, and I think they should. Um, but not all of them do. But there are, of course, some incredible people who are taking it very seriously. But it's so wonderful that you are all here and you are also supporting the work that needs to be done in the moment. And one last thing, just to
Yeah.
build off of what Nyla said. I'm sorry, I don't really mean to co-opt this. There's just so many good things happening right now. Research, talk to your research universities as well, because one of the greatest gifts you can give the municipalities, not necessarily the individuals, is research data, because that allows them to write grants in the future. And so again, when we were in Tioga County, Penn State University, I think did 2 or 3 studies in the Cowanesque River, which then gave the municipalities and Tioga County a ton of data, hydrological data that they can use for future mitigation, because now they can prove the water was moving in ways that needed to be mitigated as opposed to waiting until it happened again. So I know that that's not really what you all do. You don't work directly with municipalities, but just, as you're navigating through your world, and if any of those connections are made or can be made, or you engage with students who are looking to do research and you're saying, oh, I went to this municipality in North Carolina or Tennessee or Mississippi, maybe they could use your help. That's also really beneficial.
Awesome. And Ian, we should follow up again with your connections in Montgomery County because at least at the county level, we should make sure that that's not a thing that you're not connected. Just given our relationship that we have with them on a
Yeah,
positive level, just
Jessica
want to.
has been wonderful.
Okay,
It's
okay.
typically the heads that are the issue. It's not the
Yeah,
workers
okay.
that are the issue. Yeah.
And I want to go back to your comment, Steve. One of the things Linda and I used to do, well, Linda did it, but we did keep we had a list of opportunities that we would update, I don't know, every 2 months or something like that, Linda, I'd say. And we would send it out to a distribution list we had. And it wasn't like a high-tech type of thing. It was just a running list that we would post on our website or send to people. And maybe, Linda, we need to look at that again. There are, I mean, and Glenn and I looked at this afternoon. Amy may look at it, but there's the National VOAD has a website that lists the long-term recovery committees across the United States. So if there's a long-term recovery committee, you can somewhat assume that there's going to be a volunteer, or there's a very likely chance that there'd be a volunteer opportunities. The thing that Glenn and I think we're frustrated at when we started digging into it was information we know to be true today is not up to date on that site. So it's only as good as the database, that we
Right.
all self-report. So that we didn't want to share that because we felt like if we share that with you all, it's just going to lead to frustration. So it's something, that like there's a couple. I think you're right in saying that's an important tool. And so on the one hand, we have National VOAD trying, and it's not super effective, but it could be a starting place. But it also is maybe something we go back to with our work at Lutheran Congregational Services that we just, and not that we list every opportunity across the United States, but especially on the East Coast,
Right.
try to just keep up to date with what recoveries are happening. So that's something we'll put on our for consideration list.
Okay. Thank you.
Is it possible just to host an open calendar that people can self-post when they hear
I
about
think
this?
I mean, that'd be great, but I mean, if we're talking at a national level, that
Oh,
I don't,
I
I'm
just
not
meant
going to do
like
that.
I just meant like LCS kind of like in Pennsylvania or even in Eastern Pennsylvania.
I mean, I just know as far as like the traditional disaster response opportunities, we where that would be is we have we do put out those when they're available. Right now, there's zero. Well, actually, except for Tioga County, like the Debbie Recovery is the only place where there is an active recovery. Some a little bit of Hurricane Ida work. And we do have those listed on our PA VOAD. So we do that as far as Pennsylvania VOAD goes. I'm gonna make sure you're on Carl Jones's Pennsylvania VOAD distribution list, which we can share that information too, because that's a weekly kind of notification that has all that stuff in it. There's just not a ton of opportunities in there, but we are, you'd be great to have in our VOAD meetings, Z, and you have you're all the right thoughts. I want to look at, there were two more comments here. Um, thank you for that, putting that in there, Amy. Um, Anything else before we get off tonight that anybody wants to bring up? Any parting comments, questions?
I just want to say thank you for the invitation to participate. And I think the more that we can network in these ways
Me
and learn
too.
from one another, obviously, the better we become at what we want to do. Um, One thing that we have been able to learn that I'll share with you, and it does take building a structure somewhat similar to what Morgan has been able to create with our Synod volunteer coordinators. Those are all volunteer people. They're in the certain areas of the Synod to cover the most disaster-ridden areas. But then one of the responsibilities is to attach to long-term recovery committees. And I currently sit on four as a volunteer. But just being listening ears, you learn a whole lot. And the connection with those volunteer coordinators or construction managers goes a long way to help us find slots for volunteers to go work as teams. But it does take having enough manpower in your volunteer structure to help that communication happen.
Thank you for that, Beth. I appreciate just kind of your guidance. And I mean, again, we are building a lot of our tools and framework based off of Southeast Synod, so thank you. I just want to thank especially those of you who prepared presentations for tonight, Amy, Glenn, Dawn, Kevin. Um, what am I missing? Linda. Just really appreciate you being here and taking the time to do that, and very much appreciate you all for joining this evening. Want to continue to provide opportunities like this. Someone this morning suggested doing a crisis cleanup workshop similar to this one. Crisis cleanup is a tool that is for early recovery, and there's lots of ways to get involved in that. So that's one thing we're considering. But in any case, we will follow up by the end of the week with some of the resources that were provided in both the early session and this one, as well as the recording. So just, we'll stay in touch that way, and feel free to reach out to me or any of us who posted your information, and have a good evening. Thank you, everyone. And I'll stay on for a few minutes if anybody else wants to continue any conversation. But just wanted to formally give everyone the chance to say goodbye if they so wish. Bye, Kevin.
Good night,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Julia.
Thank you, everybody. And Amy, thank you so much for helping with that went so much smoother with you running the slides, but then you had to run your own.
It's all
But
good. It's all good.
appreciate it.
I
And
learned how to do professional development with 200 people during COVID. So I got pretty good at
yeah, there you go.
maneuvering between things.
And as much as Zoom is a faulty, it's not like being in person. I feel like I got to meet you and Beth here more so than I did when we were in person in DC. So to get to know you more through this experience, and hopefully you'll get
Yes.
some more folks coming to volunteer with you. But it's amazing how many people you already know on this
It's
call.
pretty great. Yeah. All right. Good night.
Bye, me. Rachel, I did record the session, so we'll have to talk about whatever's next with that, but I did successfully. This morning I was delayed in recording, but I did get it done tonight.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Very good. I'm excited to see what, yeah, like it's gonna be
Yeah,
good.
what we can do with it. I mean, I would like to, I think, probably just share it, the link to the recording, like post it somewhere and just share, have it raw. But
Sure.
then if there's pieces we could maybe talk about, like people don't need to sit through a 2 hour
Mm-hmm.
recorded video call. Maybe there's ways we can edit it so it can be more consumable.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Sweet.
Well, Charlie and Sue, I guess Charlie, thank you very much for joining tonight, and it was great to have you with us. All right, good night,
All
everybody.
right. Good night, Julia. Thanks.